Now we continue our discussion on operators in C, and in this lecture we are going to cover increment and decrement operators in C. What are increment and decrement operators? Increment operator is used to increment the value of a variable by 1. Note down this thing. It is used to increment the value of a variable by 1. Similarly, decrement operator is used to decrement the value of a variable by 1. For example, like in this case, you have a variable a of integer type and you assigned it a value is equals to 5, right? And you simply increment the value. That's it. What you're doing here is a plus plus. It simply means that you're incrementing the value of this variable a by 1. Here the value of this variable is 5, therefore after incrementing it will become 6. Similarly, here in this case the value of a is equals to 5 and you're decrementing the value of a, then in that case you're decrementing it by 1, which simply means the value of a now becomes 4, right? That is the meaning of a decrement operator. What are you doing here in this case when you're simply writing a plus plus? It simply means that you're incrementing the value by 1. A is equals to a plus 1, which means as we know this thing that a value is 5, therefore 5 plus 1 is equals to 6, and assign this value to a. Therefore a becomes 6. And in this case I'm decrementing the value by 1, which means 5 minus 1 here in this case, which is equals to 4, and I assign this value to a, which is now a is equals to 4, right? Let's talk more about the increment-decrement operators. Both are unary operators. You already know what a binary operator is, right? Addition operator is a binary operator because it requires 2 operands. In this case, like plus plus and minus minus requires just 1 operand. That is why they are called unary operators. They are applied on a single operand. That is why they are called unary operators. As plus plus is an increment operator and a is a single operand, right? This operator is applied on a single operand, therefore this operator is called as a unary operator. This statement is totally right. On the other hand, if we write a plus plus a, then this is a wrong statement. Why? Because you are applying 2 operands for this particular operator, which is a unary operator. Therefore this is wrong. You cannot do that. Plus plus is a unary operator. Similarly, minus minus is also a unary operator. It has to be applied to only 1 operand and not 2 operands. Apart from that, there are 2 types of increment operators. The first one is called pre-increment operator and the second one is called post-increment operator. Pre-increment simply means that plus plus operator is applied before the operand. That is here in this case, plus plus operator is applied before the operand. And post-increment simply means that plus plus operator is applied after the operand. Okay? For decrement operator also, we have 2 types, pre-decrement operator and a post-decrement operator. Pre-decrement simply means minus minus operator is applied before the operand and post-decrement means minus minus operator is applied after the operand. That's it. You cannot use rvalue before or after increment or decrement operator. For example, a plus b plus plus. This statement will produce an error because a plus b is an r value and you cannot provide it before or after increment or decrement operator. Therefore, the error produced by the compiler is that L value required as an increment operand, but what we are providing here, we are providing an r value. Let's try to understand what is the meaning of L value and r value. L value or left value simply means an object that has an identifiable location in memory. That is, having an address. L value simply points to or refers to a memory location. In any assignment statement, L value must have the capability to hold the data. L value must be a variable because they have the capability to store the data. When we are writing a statement like integer a is equals to 5, what do we mean by that? We are providing L value, or you can say left value, as a variable to this statement. Right? Here L value is a variable which is a, and that is the reason why it is called as a left value or L value, because that L value is having the capability to hold the data. That is why it is written before the assignment operator. L value cannot be a function because they do not have the capability to store the data. Expressions like a plus b, because they will return some constant value like 3 plus 4 when we do, it is equals to 7, and that is a constant value, and it does not have a capability to store data. Similarly, constant also does not have the capability to store the data, and that is so obvious. On the other hand, if we talk about the rvalue or write value, simply means an object that has no identifiable location in memory. Something is written after the assignment operator usually does not have the capability to hold the data. Therefore, they are considered to be as the write value or rvalue. Lvalue simply points to or refers to a memory location. Rvalue does not refers to or points to a memory location where we will store our data. Anything which is capable of returning a constant expression or value. Like for example, functions usually do return constant values. Expressions like a plus b do return some values. Suppose we have a variable like x, and what we do, x is equals to a plus b. Before the assignment operator, you are providing an lvalue, and after the assignment operator, you are providing an expression a plus b. That expression will return some constant. That is why it is considered to be as an rvalue, right? We are simply returning the result of the expression to the lvalue. Now you understand this thing, why an object which is having the capability to hold the data must be there before the assignment operator. A plus plus is equivalent to a is equals to a plus 1. What does it really mean? This is an assignment operator. Before the assignment operator, we must have a variable. And after that, this is an expression a plus 1, which is an rvalue. You are incrementing the value of a and you are assigning the result to this a only. Therefore, this operand must be a variable. On the other hand, if you simply write an expression before or after the increment or decrement operator, then what does it really mean? In this case, it is equivalent to a plus b is equals to a plus b plus 1. You are incrementing this expression. That is okay. But you are assigning it to an expression which does not have the capability to store the data. Therefore, this statement is totally wrong. You cannot do that. You cannot assign some expression result to an expression only. You can assign it to a variable, that is okay, but you cannot assign it to an expression only. Therefore, before or after increment or decrement operator, you cannot write an rvalue. You must have an lvalue. That is why the compiler is producing this error. Lvalue required as increment operand. Compiler is expecting a variable as an increment operand, but we are providing an expression a plus b which does not have the capability to store the data. Now I think you understand what is the meaning of lvalue, rvalue, and why we are requiring an lvalue before or after increment or decrement operator. Let's try to address one question. What is the difference between pre-increment and post-increment operator or pre-decrement and post-decrement operator? Prefix pre simply means first increment or decrement, then assign it to another variable. When we write a prefix called pre in front of increment or decrement operator, then it simply means that first increment or decrement the value, then assign it to another variable. On the other hand, post prefix simply means first assign it to another variable, then increment or decrement. Let's try to illustrate this fact with the help of one example. Suppose we have two variables x and a. Here we are trying to increment the value of a, and here also we are trying to increment the value of a. The difference only lies in these two cases is that here we are pre-incrementing and here we are post-incrementing. Here also we are assigning the result of increment to this variable, and here also we are assigning the result of increment to this variable. Let's imagine these two variables as boxes or containers. Suppose initially a contains 5 as its value. Now recall, what does pre-increment mean? It first increments the value. That means 5 is incremented to 6 first, and then it assigns value to another variable, which is x in this case. It first increments the value. After increment 5 becomes 6, then it assigns the value to another variable. Now this x would also consist of value is equals to 6. On the other hand, in the case of post increment, we are first assigning the value to another variable. Here in this case, the value of a is 5. After assignment, this variable also contain value is equals to 5, and then after it will increment the value. This means now A is incremented to 6. If you note down one thing, here also we are incrementing the value of A, and here also we are incrementing the value of A. The only difference is that this variable contains value is equals to 6, which is the incremented value, and this variable contains value is equals to 5, which is the value before the increment, right? Therefore, here in this case, x is equals to 6, and here in this case, x is equals to 5. And that is the difference between a pre-increment and a post-increment operator.